What really happened to Doug Larson? And why are so many people suddenly asking questions? If you've spent any time watching farming content online, you've probably seen the familiar face from Larson Farms. Hardworking, straightforward, and seemingly living the kind of life most people only see in movies. But recently, viewers started noticing small things that didn't quite add up. Comments began stacking up, search trends quietly climbed, and before long, rumors started spreading across the internet. Some claimed something serious had happened behind the scenes. Others wondered if the pressure of modern farming was finally catching up, and a few believed there was a story no one was talking about. But here's the thing. The internet doesn't always get it right. Today, we're digging deep past the speculation, separating fact from fiction, and uncovering the reality of what's actually been going on. Because the truth behind Doug Larson is far more interesting than most people realize. Before the rumors, before the questions, Doug Larson was known for something much simpler: consistency. Out on the fields of Minnesota, long before sunrise touched the rows of crops, Doug was already moving. Farming isn't the kind of job you clock into, and it definitely isn't one you can pause when things get difficult. It's a lifestyle built on routine, risk, and resilience. For years, viewers watched Larson Farms not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. Doug, often called Dugo by fans, became recognizable for his calm attitude and no-nonsense approach. Whether he was operating massive machinery, troubleshooting broken equipment, or racing the weather to bring in a harvest, there was an authenticity that people trusted. Nothing felt staged, nothing felt exaggerated, and that's exactly why the recent chatter caught so many people off guard. Because when someone who appears this steady suddenly becomes the subject of online speculation, people notice. Larson Farms itself isn't some overnight internet success story. It's a multi-generational operation, the kind built over decades through good seasons and brutal ones. Farming at that scale means juggling unpredictable weather, rising equipment costs, fluctuating crop prices, and the constant pressure to keep everything running. One bad year can ripple into the next, yet on camera, Doug rarely showed cracks. Problems were handled, setbacks were part of the job. The channel became a window into a world most people never experience, and that transparency helped build a loyal audience. But visibility has a strange side effect. The more people watch you, the more they start to analyze every detail. A missed upload, a different tone in a video, a moment that feels slightly off. For most creators, these things pass unnoticed. But for someone like Doug, whose reliability became part of his identity, even small changes sparked curiosity. And that curiosity was about to snowball into something much bigger. The first real spark didn't come from a headline. It came from viewers. Sharp-eyed fans began pointing out small shifts, a slightly different tone in a video, a stretch of uploads that felt less frequent, moments where Doug seemed more focused, more serious, less talkative than usual. On their own, none of it meant anything. But online, patterns don't stay small for long. Comments started appearing under videos. Is everything okay? Something feels different. Hope Doug's doing all right. At first, it looked like normal concern. Then speculation crept in. A few users claimed they'd heard something was going on behind the scenes. Others hinted at issues without ever explaining what that meant. And that's when the algorithm did what it does best. Searches for Doug Larson quietly began trending upward. A couple of unrelated videos with dramatic titles amplified the curiosity. Suddenly, the simple question, "What happened?" was everywhere. But here's what made the situation more intense. Farming isn't a flashy industry. It's unpredictable, exhausting, and financially risky. A rough season can hit hard. Weather delays, machinery breakdowns, and market swings don't just affect crops, they affect people. Viewers who understood that reality started connecting dots that may not have even existed. And once people start filling in blanks themselves, stories take on a life of their own. The strange part? There was no major announcement, no dramatic reveal, just silence from the rumor mill. And that silence made everything louder, because when answers don't come quickly, the internet creates its own, and what happened next would push the speculation even further. Then something unexpected happened, or the rumors stopped being quiet. What started as scattered comments slowly turned into full-blown theories. Some viewers became convinced that Doug was stepping away from farming. Others suggested the pressure of running a large operation was finally taking its toll. A few even wondered if something serious had happened off camera. But none of these claims came with proof. This is the strange reality of being visible online. When people feel connected to someone, even normal life changes can trigger concern. And Doug wasn't just another creator. For many viewers, he represented reliability, strength, the kind of person who shows up no matter how tough the season gets. So when fans sensed even the smallest shift, their imaginations filled the silence. What most people don't realize is that farm channels operate on a completely different rhythm than typical content creators. When planting or harvest season hits, schedules can become relentless. Days blur together. Sleep becomes optional. Uploading videos often drops to the bottom of the priority list, not because creators don't care, but because the real-world stakes are too high. One delayed harvest can mean massive financial loss. One equipment failure can derail weeks of planning, and one stretch of bad weather can undo months of work. To someone outside that world, fewer videos might look alarming. Inside agriculture, it can simply mean everyone is in survival mode. Still, the human brain searches for explanations. Viewers went back through older videos, analyzing body language, reading into conversations, even debating whether Doug seemed more tired than usual. But here's the turning point many people missed. Despite all the speculation, Larson Farms never showed signs of shutting down. The operation kept moving, work continued, crops still needed attention, which raises a bigger question. Were people seeing a real warning sign? Or just projecting fears onto a life they only witnessed through a screen? And the deeper we look, the clearer the answer becomes. But to understand why the rumors never quite matched reality, you have to look at the world Doug Larson actually lives in. Because modern farming is far more intense than most people imagine. From the outside, it can look peaceful. Endless fields, open skies, powerful machines rolling through neat rows of crops. But behind that picture is constant pressure. Farming today is a high-stakes business, where margins are tight and uncertainty is part of the job description. Equipment alone can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. One breakdown during a critical window isn't just inconvenient, it can threaten an entire season. Then, there's fuel prices, seed costs, fertilizer, land payments. The list never seems to end. And unlike most businesses, farmers can do everything right and still lose. Weather doesn't negotiate. Markets don't care how hard you worked. Timing is everything. This is the environment Doug has operated in for years, calmly, steadily, and without much complaint on camera. But that doesn't mean the pressure isn't there. In fact, many longtime viewers began noticing that Doug carried himself with the focus of someone who understands exactly what's at stake. Not panic, not struggle, just intense responsibility. Because when you're part of a multi-generational farm, you're not just managing crops, you're protecting a legacy. What often gets mistaken for something being wrong is sometimes just the weight of leadership. Decisions get bigger, risks get higher, and the room for error gets smaller every single year. Yet here's the detail that disrupts the entire rumor narrative. Through all the online chatter, Larson Farms never showed signs of collapse. No sudden disappearances, no confirmed crisis, no dramatic announcements, just work. Consistent, demanding, never-ending work. Which suggests the real story might not be about something going wrong at all, but about a reality most people aren't prepared to fully understand. And once viewers began realizing this, the conversation started to shift in a completely different direction. The shift didn't happen overnight, but it happened. As more viewers stepped back and looked at the bigger picture, the tone in the comments began to change. Instead of asking, "What happened to Doug?" people started saying something different. This is just farming. And that realization matters, because when you strip away the speculation, what you're left with isn't scandal. It's pressure, the kind that doesn't make headlines but quietly shapes every decision. Long hours, tight margins, responsibility to family, responsibility to land, responsibility to employees. That weight doesn't disappear just because a camera is rolling. In fact, being on YouTube can amplify it. Now, there's another layer, and thousands of viewers analyzing every upload, every expression, every pause. And when content slows down or energy shifts slightly, it doesn't always mean something is wrong. Sometimes it means someone is simply exhausted after a 16-hour day in the field. What many people forget is that creators who document real life can't manufacture drama on demand. If harvest is late, it's late. If machinery breaks, it needs fixing. If weather turns bad, priorities change immediately. There's no script in farming. And ironically, that authenticity is what built Doug's audience in the first place. The rumors grew because people care. They feel invested. But investment can turn into projection. When viewers see a hardworking farmer carrying serious responsibility, they may interpret normal stress as hidden trouble. Yet the operation kept running. Videos kept coming. The farm kept producing. Which leads to an uncomfortable but important truth. Sometimes the internet doesn't expose secrets. Sometimes it creates them. And once that became clear, the real takeaway about Doug Larson wasn't about disappearance or drama at all. It was about perception. So what really happened to Doug Larson? Nothing dramatic, nothing exposed, no secret collapse behind the scenes. What happened was something far less flashy, but far more real. Viewers got a glimpse of what sustained pressure looks like on someone carrying enormous responsibility. They saw the face of modern agriculture, high risk, non-stop work, and very little room for error. And because Doug has always presented himself as steady and dependable, even subtle changes felt amplified. But steady doesn't mean untouched by stress. It means showing up anyway. In a world where online personalities often thrive on chaos, controversy, or viral drama, Larson Farms stands out precisely because it doesn't. The channel documents long days, mechanical setbacks, unpredictable weather, and the grind that most people will never experience firsthand. That's not a storyline built for explosive headlines. It's built for reality. And reality can feel quieter than rumors. If anything, the speculation revealed more about the audience than about Doug. It showed how deeply people connect to authenticity. When someone who feels consistent shifts even slightly, concern grows fast. But concern doesn't automatically equal crisis. Doug didn't vanish. The farm didn't fold. There was no confirmed scandal or hidden event waiting to be uncovered. There was work, there was responsibility, there was another season rolling forward, and maybe that's the biggest takeaway of all. Sometimes when the internet asks, what really happened? The answer isn't dramatic. It isn't shocking, it isn't scandalous. Sometimes the answer is simple: life kept moving. And in the case of Doug Larson, that might be the most powerful story of all. Here's the part most rumor-driven stories never talk about: the strength it takes to live a life that doesn't chase attention. Because while the internet briefly circled Doug Larson with questions and theories, he appeared to be doing exactly what he has always done, focusing on the farm. No public meltdown, no dramatic explanations, no attempt to fight every comment, just forward motion. And that response alone says more than any statement ever could. You see, people who operate in high-pressure environments often develop a different mindset. When your schedule is dictated by weather patterns and narrow planting windows, there simply isn't time to address every wave of online chatter. Crops won't wait. Equipment won't fix itself. Opportunities don't pause. So instead of reacting, Doug seemed to lean into what he could control: the work. Interestingly, longtime viewers started picking up on this quiet resilience. Many noticed that while speculation came and went, the core of Larson Farms never changed. The same commitment, the same transparency, the same willingness to show both the wins and the setbacks. And slowly, something unexpected happened. Respect grew louder than rumor. People began defending the very consistency they once questioned. Comments shifted from curiosity to appreciation. Viewers pointed out how rare it is to watch someone document real responsibility without turning it into entertainment. Because the truth is, resilience isn't flashy, it doesn't trend, but it earns trust over time. And maybe that's why Doug's story resonates more deeply than a typical internet mystery. It reflects a kind of determination that can't be staged, which leaves us with one final realization. Maybe the real story was never about what happened to Doug Larson. Maybe it was about what didn't happen. He never stopped showing up. And that, in today's world, is becoming increasingly rare. And when you step back and look at the entire story, one thing becomes clear. The mystery surrounding Doug Larson was never really about disappearance, scandal, or some hidden downfall. It was about expectation. In today's fast-moving digital world, people have grown used to dramatic arcs. When someone gains visibility online, audiences almost anticipate a turning point, a controversy, a burnout, a sudden life change. Quiet stability doesn't fit the pattern people are used to seeing, but Larson Farms was never built on drama. It was built on discipline. Season after season, the work continues whether anyone is watching or not, and that's what makes this story surprisingly powerful. While rumors came and went, Doug remained anchored to something far bigger than internet noise: legacy, family, and the responsibility to keep moving forward no matter what. In a strange way, the question, what really happened, has a simple answer. Doug kept doing what he's always done. Showing up before the sun rises. Solving problems as they come. Betting every season on factors no one can fully control. Maybe the real lesson here is this: not every silence hides a secret. Sometimes it just means someone is too busy building a life to explain it. And perhaps that reality is far more compelling than any rumor could ever be.